options?
Yeah, and a Zoom ratio and request remote control. Because I see when I get up there, I can't see the little box that allows me, let me try this and see if that, nope, that didn't do it. Oh, let me try view. Says standard, that's what's click, no, full screen. Here we go. There we go.
Okay, we are good. We are on live and everything. We just waiting for everybody to show up.
Okay. Little origami there. I like that. I'm not that advanced in my PowerPoint skills.
It's rather. Sometimes it makes you what's the right word? You try to find something to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we look to start about 6:05.
Okay.
Okay. Do you think they're gonna do another round of PPP?
Oh no, that is gone.
Ship has sailed and sank.
Yes.
Failed and sank.
And other COVID related alphabet soup. Yes.
It served its purpose. It helped a lot of small businesses.
It did, it really did, which was a good thing, which was actually a good thing. But a lot of them didn't take advantage of it as well.
Understood. There are a lot of local programs still available for COVID relief. A lot of local county government and city governments that are taking advantage of some of the COVID relief that's still available.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if CSRA is doing any of that,
No,
business lending.
and they're not doing anything further in Augusta as well. I think they may start back again. Housing Community Development may do
Yeah,
another COVID relief, but so far I haven't heard anything regarding anybody doing anything.
But we'll
yeah,
keep our ears open as well if we hear anything about local programs that are coming. Hopefully, some of the banks there will participate in the SSBCI loan program that
mm,
should be
yeah.
launching soon.
Yeah, I've been pushing it, G-Men, and hopefully that they'll get involved in that program as well. Um, considering considering the fact that they have money and they're out there trying to do things. So I'm going to go and get started, and our board chair is on, so I'm going to allow her to give some greetings, and after she does greetings, then I will come back and we should have some more attendees by then.
Okay.
So okay, so I'm gonna allow her to talk now. All right, Miss Sharif, you can give a few words of greetings and
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Greetings on behalf of the Board of Directors of the CSRA Business League. Greet you. Thank you for all of your participation. And to our presenters this afternoon, we cannot say thank you enough for your support that you have shown towards the league. So we just ask that you stay with us, continue to support us so we can move forward and be the mechanism that's needed in this community. So as we put on our seminars, we hope that they are able to be assistance to someone. And we just really thank each of you and those that are in attendance. Once again, we thank you for your continued support. So you all have a blessed evening. Enjoy the certification that's being presented to you this afternoon. And I'm sure if you have any additional questions, she'll be glad to answer them for you. So once again, thank you, and you all have a blessed evening.
thank you, Miss Sharif. So as we move forward, and good afternoon, everyone. You just heard from our board chair, Ms. Veronica Sharif. I welcome you to the CSR Business League SBA certification workshop, featured Ms. Terry Dennison, and she's assisted by Ms. Rosemarie A. Drake. Um, this event, and before we get started, please, I want you to ensure that at the end of the event, there will be a survey. Please complete the survey because it assists us in moving forward, providing workshops for you as well, and to ensure that the information that was given, if you did not get your questions answered, that you have the opportunity to put them in the survey and we will get them answered for you as well. We have some upcoming events coming forward. In September, we will have a marketing strategy seminar. That seminar has been requested by quite a few over the last year. We will be having Ms. Shantae Newton, who is a local business, minority business owner here in the CSRA. Very good at her craft, who will be conducting that webinar. On the 18th of October, we will be back in person for our first in-person event for over the last 2 years for our Women Empowerment Conference. Great event coming forward. We have some great presenters that will be presenting during that time, and there are some vendor opportunities open as well. So if you would like to be a vendor, please put that information in your survey, or you could put it in the chat, and we will get you the information that you need. Vendor spaces are $25, and they are limited. And we'll be celebrating our 52nd anniversary banquet on the 11th of November here in Augusta at the Marriott. Tickets will be on sale pretty soon, and more information will be forthcoming. The seminar on the 23rd and the Women's Empowerment Conference are both free. The Women's Empowerment Conference is in person and virtually. So if you would like to attend virtually, you can. And if you want to join us for a meal and some good entertainment in person, you can do so as well. So I don't want to hold anyone else up and to take up more of your time than need be. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Dennison, who has always been available to us over the last, since I've been here. I can say that, since I've been here. And she even included me in something that has been a blessing to me when the SBA administrator was here in Augusta. She invited me to attend that roundtable, which I did, and very appreciative for having to meet the administrator. It has been a great highlight as well of my career, and I thank her for that. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Ms. Drake, to Ms. Dennison and Ms. Drake.
Good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be with you. It's been a while, probably about a year or so since I last did a webinar. And of course, at that time, we were in the throes of the pandemic and pandemic relief. In terms of SBA, we're kind of at a point now where all the pandemic specific programs and resources are gone. And we're kind of refocusing on our standard offerings in the areas of capital access, counseling and education, and government contracting and disaster assistance for declared disasters. So this evening, I was asked to talk about contracting certifications. I'd be a little curious, and feel free to put something in the chat in terms of whether you are currently a government contractor, if you currently participate in one of our certification programs such as 8A or Women-Owned Small Business or HubZone, et cetera. And then if there's any specific questions, of course, feel free to put those in the chat. Rosemarie Drake, who is our Deputy District Director, she's going to help me monitor the chat. And I want to really just give you an overview and some things to think about. So not a real heavy, deep dive into the nuts and bolts and in the weeds of federal government certification, but really to just kind of give you an overview and really leave time for you to ask questions and to have some conversation. So with that, keep our fingers crossed. I bring
While Terry's bringing that up, we'll just take a quick poll. So we have a couple people on the line. If you have the ability to raise your hand, if you are currently certified through our programs, if you would raise your hand.
And I can't, it's telling me I'm disabled from sharing the screen.
Ellis, would you turn that on for Terry? And Terry, I have the ability to share my screen if you want me to share the screen.
Okay, I did. I thought I did it from the beginning, but
Let me try again.
now. Okay,
it could very well be user error. There we go.
Okay.
Let me go here. And I'm going to go to, where are we? I need to go to slideshow. And from the beginning. Okay, so you see my slide there?
We do.
Title slide, great. So going to talk to me, like I said, mainly about federal government contracting certifications, kind of what's the purpose behind them, and then talk about maybe a couple other resources that are available in the realm of federal government contracting. And then I always got to touch on with a quick reminder of some of the other things that we offer on an ongoing basis. So a lot of times people will say, you know, I need to get an 8A certification, or I need to get HubZone certification, or I need to get Women-Owned Small Business certification. And it's like, well, why? Well, because they're there to be gotten, so to speak. And that probably need a little more focus there. And a lot of times people don't really understand the context in which federal certifications, or for that matter, state and local government certifications as well, the context in which those exist why they exist, and why they could be valuable to you, and how to make them a valuable tool for you. So, of course, I'm going to focus on federal government contracting. And in the federal government, for many years, there's a standard annual goal that at least 23% of federal contracting dollars across the federal government nationwide, at least 23% of those dollars are spent with small business. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of what that could mean, on any given fiscal year that we have, which of course is October 1st to September 30, the federal government spends approximately $500 billion, 500 to 600 billion. So basically $500 billion on a variety of goods and services. So 23% of the dollars, the idea is to have those, try to direct those purchases dollars to small businesses through contracting. And then in addition to that small business goal, other goals have been added along the way. For example, small disadvantaged businesses, or SDB, as we call them for short, which includes participants in SBA's 8A business development program. For the longest time, that goal was 5%. Of course, President Biden signed an executive order in November, I believe, of 2021, as part of increasing equity and inclusion across the federal government and its programs. When it came to federal contracting, wanted to increase that goal. So ultimately, that goal is going to increase from 5% all the way up to 15%. This fiscal year, it went from 5% to 11%, and then I think they're going to add like 1% to that goal each year until we get up to an SDB goal of 15%. Other goals include the historically underutilized business zone or hub zone certification or classification, 3% of those dollars. And just as an FYI, the federal government, this is the one socioeconomic goal related to small business that it has not met. We got close this past fiscal year. I think it was 2.68%, but have not made that 3% yet. Then you have the women-owned small business goal of 5%, and then service disabled veteran-owned small business, a 3% goal. So those goals exist. So the question becomes, if the federal government has these goals, how can federal agencies know that the contracts that are supposed to go towards these goals being filled for their agency? How do they know they're going to those types of businesses? That's where the certification comes in. Basically, in certifying, you're saying that I'm that type of business. If you have a goal for hub zone spending, I am a hub zone certified business that can help you, federal agency, meet your hub zone goal. There's really two types of certification. We have formal certification, which basically means you have to apply. There's an application process where an application is submitted to the SBA, and we have to, as an agency, approve you for that certification status. That would be our 8A business development program, which of course that falls under the small disadvantaged business goal, hub zone, and women-owned small business. Self-certification basically means that there isn't a formal certification process. You certify when you submit a bid or proposal that you meet that criteria, and that would be it. The only time where you would have to have something more formally done, a more formal determination done in those cases, is if someone protests your receiving an award as, say, a small business or a service disabled veteran-owned small business. And usually when that protest occurs, it has to be very specific. They can't just say, well, I don't think they meet this criteria. They have to have some reasonable facts, or what they believe to be facts, that would indicate that that business does not meet that criteria. But short of a protest, you indicate yourself that you are. And small business is one of those. I know a lot of times we get calls or questions about, well, I need to get a certification from SBA that I'm a small business. No, that is something that you would self-certify. Our small business standards basically are based on your industry classification. If you're familiar with North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS codes, there's one for every type of business, industry, or business activity, and we have assigned a size standard to it. Either it's based on the number of employees you have, like if you're a manufacturer, for example, or the average receipts over a 5-year period if, say, you're a retail or service business. Same is true with the service disabled veteran-owned small business. You would indicate that you are that, and the criteria for what constitutes a service disabled veteran-owned small business is in our SBA regulations and on the website at sba.gov as well. So keep that in mind. Formal certification, you need to apply, have SBA say, yes, you meet this criteria. Self-certification, you look at the criteria and determine, I do meet that criteria, and attest to that. Before we get to certifications, because I know a lot of times people just want to get the certifications. Before you get the certifications, do your market research. Yes, we're talking about federal government contracting, but be it the federal government, be it state or local government, there's still a component of market research. And is this a proper fit for you and your business based on what you do, what you offer, and what you're planning to do in developing your business? Terminology is different. There's obviously some things that are unique to doing business with the government entity that we wouldn't necessarily have being the same on the corporate side or private sector side. But the idea of market, identifying your niche, and then coming up with a strategy to pursue those agencies, that would still be the same. So in terms of federal government, you would need to ask yourself, are basically federal agencies buying what you are selling? And if they are, how much? And how often do they buy it? Do they buy it on a routine basis or an annual basis, ongoing basis, or do they make periodic purchases like once every few years? And methods of how they purchase. Do they compete everything through, sealed bid, or do they do set-asides? Do they do sole source contracts where they do direct awards? Those are some of the things you need to think about in terms of which agencies to target. There are some tools out there and resources to help you be able to work through that and to come to some conclusions about maybe which agencies would be your best chance for obtaining work with. SAM.gov used to be the Federal Procurement Data System, but that has been integrated into SAM.gov. You would look under contracting data, and you can look up based on industry codes, based on agency, based on where the vendor is located, where the job is located. There's a lot of different ways to do that research. And then another website, which I find a little easier to use, is USA Spending, which has a lot of that same information. And that can kind of help you hone in on where you need to focus. In terms of, well, maybe this is overwhelming, or maybe you don't feel like you can do this either because you don't have time, or it feels a little daunting for you to do this. There is the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, or PTACs, here in Georgia. That is housed with Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech Procurement Assistance Center. And I have their website right there, gtpac.org. And in fact, there is a point of contact for the Augusta area. I think there's like 7 centers like this around the state that can actually help you through that process of doing the research and coming up with maybe which agencies you should target and coming up with some strategies on how to best approach them. So now, with that in mind, I'm going to talk about some of the certifications, particularly the ones where there's a formal certification that SBA is involved in. The one that has probably been around the longest and people talk about a lot is the 8A Business Development Program. What people don't realize is technically there is not a minority business certification. in the federal government. You never see MBE anywhere in federal statute or in discussion of federal contracting like you do, say, in the corporate sector or at state and local government. The 8A Business Development Program, a lot of the participants are minority-owned businesses, and you'll see that in a minute, but there are ways for other individuals to qualify for the program as well. Maybe, for example, based on gender or physical handicap or some other thing that they make a case for why they're similarly disadvantaged to participate and qualify for the program. So, the idea is I really don't like to call it a certification in a lot of ways, because we really do try to look at it as a business development program, which centers on contracting and using contracting as a way of generating revenue, which then gives you the ability to grow that business and gain capacity to do more things inside and outside of government contracting. It's a 9-year program, or up to 9 years. If you do really well, you may graduate early or choose to leave the program if you feel that it's not addressing your goals and objectives for your business. But short of that, it's a 9-year program. And the one thing I cannot impress on people enough, you only get to participate once with the 8A certification or the 8A program. See, I contradicted myself. 8A Business Development Program. The company that you qualify can only participate in the 8A program once, and you can only claim quote unquote disadvantaged status, and I'll talk about that once. Once you've been through the program, if you try to go with another firm that's trying to qualify for 8A, they will not count you as someone that can qualify that business. So the big takeaway is, since you only get one shot at this, you really need to make sure that you're ready to participate and take full advantage of it really from day one. A lot of times people come in and they spend the first 3 or 4 years trying to figure out what they want to do. And now they're halfway through the program and not able to get as much out of it as they could have, or they realize, I really don't have a product or service that the federal government buys in the quantities and the frequency that warrants me setting up my operations for 8A program participation. So it's really important to do a lot of homework on the front end, figure out that there are good chances of you having opportunities in federal contracting with specific agencies. And then to also think about the backside. Once you leave the program and you're no longer able to take advantage of some of the advantages of the 8A program, how do you then continue to compete in the federal marketplace? So some of the main features or the things to think about in terms of elements of 8A program eligibility, I mentioned social disadvantage, basically having disadvantage because of cultural biases and discrimination. And of course, ethnic minorities have been largely affected by that. Economic disadvantage. So they also look at your personal net worth, your personal income, your personal assets, and how do those stack up compared to someone who's not faced those types of discriminatory barriers and cultural biases. It's got to be majority ownership and unconditional. And what they mean by unconditional is that you own it free and clear, at least 51% of the business. If there's conditions to that ownership, where someone who is not trying to claim social and economic disadvantage can exercise or have the potential to exercise control over the business, that can be problematic. Control the day-to-day operations. So if you're a corporation, you control or disadvantaged persons, or the qualifying individuals control the board of directors. They either hold the title of president or CEO of the company. They have the technical or managerial capabilities to run the day-to-day operations of the company. Usually they're the highest compensated. If it's just you, that's not as much of an issue. But if you have other individuals involved that cannot qualify to meet the disadvantage criteria, then that's when it becomes an issue. Can those individuals exercise or have the potential to exercise control over the day-to-day operations? And then once again, because this is a business development program, looking at it longer term, there is an element that you don't have with your standard certification programs, and that's potential for success. And a lot of time people have an issue with this because it's like, okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about social and economic disadvantage. If I have economic disadvantage because my income is below a certain level or my assets, but now you're telling me I got to have the resources to operate the business. The best way to explain that is that economic disadvantage is a comparative thing, compared to someone who has not encountered cultural bias or discriminatory practices or institutions, and that impede your ability to compete in the business world. It's a comparison. It's not an absolute. So you got to have some resources to be able to do, to enter contracting and to be able to build upon that. So that's what we mean by potential for success. Usually that can mean you've done, what have you done in terms of jobs in the area in which you're seeking certification in terms of your primary industry classification. Those are the things that they're looking at. Are you at least solvent as a business? Maybe you have modest revenues, maybe you have modest profits, but you're not operating at a huge deficit that would preclude you from being able to build and operate with federal contracts. Okay, one thing that's a theme on all of these certifications and in doing business with the federal government, and a lot of people don't realize this, the qualifying individuals for the 8A program and for all these programs have to be U.S. citizens. You can't be a permanent resident. You can't have, even if it's a legal, some other legal alien status. If it's not a U.S. citizen, you cannot participate in federal contracting in terms of these certifications. In terms of social disadvantage, as I mentioned, most of the participants in the program are what we would consider ethnic minorities, and these are called the designated group. These are groups that are presumed, because of the history that has been well documented, they cannot, their ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired. And these groups are listed here. So there's a presumption of social disadvantage unless there's evidence to the contrary. And to be honest, I don't know of a case where someone has challenged someone's social disadvantage in spite of being a member of one of these groups and was successful. And then if you're not a member of one of those groups, there's still a way for those individuals to perhaps qualify. And that's basically they have to make a case for why they are similarly socially disadvantaged. It could be based on being a member of another minority group that's not specifically named as a designated group member. It could be based on gender, physical handicap. Maybe if you're in Appalachia and not able to really compete in the economic mainstream because of the economic isolation there, perhaps that could be an argument for saying that I'm similarly socially disadvantaged. And the key there has got to be, it can't be a couple of incidents. It has to be chronic and substantial, ongoing for a long period of time, and it has had a definite impact on your advancement in the business world. Economic disadvantage, look at basically net worth, your personal net worth, less than $750,000, and that's with some adjustments. Take out the equity in your primary residence and the ownership interest value of the business that you're qualifying for the 8A program. Those adjustments are made. Average revenue for 3 years, your personal income, 350 or less, and then fair market value of your personal assets total, regardless of what your adjusted net worth, the personal assets is 6 million or less. I always like to use the example, you do have like the minority business enterprise or MBE certifications that you have like in corporate or at the local government. level, and they don't necessarily look at economic disadvantage. They just look at, are you a member of one of these groups? So maybe an example would be Mike, I'll say Michael Jordan. You know, he probably could qualify as an MBE in a lot of cases because they will look at, yes, he's African-American, he owns the majority of the company, et cetera. They won't look at his personal wealth, whereas he would not qualify for the 8A program, even though he is a member of one of the designated groups because of his personal assets, net income, and personal net worth. In terms of how the contracting work, one of the big advantages of the program is the 8A sole source feature. Basically, what the contracting officer would do is, you have a conversation, you've been marketing to this agency, and you see an opportunity. They don't know quite how they're going to do the procurement. They just know they need to buy something. You have a conversation with them perhaps, or through presentations show that you have the ability to meet that need. And basically, if they feel that you can provide that good or service, you can do it at a fair and reasonable price, then they can actually award directly to you as a business owner, as an 8A firm, for contracts up to $4.5 million without competition. If you're a manufacturer and it's a manufacturing related contracting opportunity, then it could be up to $7 million. If it's over those thresholds, another thing that can happen is they will have a competition, but they will limit it to other 8A program participants. So it would be businesses that are similarly situated, and it's not like you're competing against, large businesses or businesses that would not be 8A eligible. One thing too, as we get, like I mentioned, this 9-year term, the first 4 years of the developmental stage. For the most part, there are some really high limits for the amount of 8A sole source, but in most cases, most businesses would not even become an issue. So they're able to really take advantage of the sole source opportunities through the 8A program without really a lot of concern. When you get to the last half of the program, the transitional stage, starting in year 5, then we have targets in terms of the percentage of your revenues that have to come from something other than 8A contracts. And it goes up, it starts at 15 in year 5, and it goes all the way up to 50% in the last year. So if those targets aren't met, then there are things that the agency can do to, one, try to help you achieve those targets, but then we also will look at limiting sole source opportunities at that point, unless you can show good faith effort that you've been really trying to obtain non-8A work. In terms of just continuing eligibility requirements, because these are some of the things that come up a lot. So I will take a little time to mention them here. You, of course, apply for the 8A program and you say you're approved. One thing you have to do is do a business plan within 60 days of being approved to participate in the 8A program, because once again, this is a business development program. So we used to have a form, very prescribed form that you had to fill out. And really that got to be, I think people treated it just as it looked, like a form. So it really wasn't doing a business plan that was truly a roadmap for your business. So that form has been done away with. We have kind of a list of things that we look for in a business plan, but really try to leave it more open so that you can structure that business plan in a way that is meaningful and helpful to you, and able to use it to track your progress of your company. In addition to that initial business plan, you are required on an annual basis to update the plan. That is part of what we call our annual review, where we look at the progress of the business, where are they in terms of what they've kind of set out to do and what they've been able to achieve. And then we also do at the local level kind of a quick check as to continued eligibility. Has something changed that would render the company no longer eligible for the program? And so that is a requirement. We ask for a certain documentation as part of that process. And if companies do not comply, then that is a reason that we can seek to terminate their participation in the program, because that is an ongoing requirement. Financial statements have to be submitted because, once again, we want to monitor the progress of the business as a business development program, but also it gives us a basis for if there are requirements that are offered to the 8A program on your behalf, we can have some level of comfort that you would be able to perform on that requirement. And I've laid out here kind of what the requirements are in terms of the type of statement. You can do in-house up to 2 million in revenues. Once you get to 2 million or more than 2 million, then it's either going to be a reviewed statement or it's going to be an audited statement. I know a lot of time businesses are like, well, audited statements, those are so expensive, reviewed, they're so expensive. But there's a reason why it's based on revenue level. So one of the things, if you're looking to come into the 8A program and participate, you kind of have a game plan for being able to cover those expenses as your revenues go up. You have to certify a couple times a year, or kind of give us any information in terms of any representatives that you use or are compensated in connection with trying to obtain federal contracts. And basically that's to see, make sure that everything is above board, or that you're not paying an exorbitant amount of fees in relation to the service that was provided or was supposed to have been provided in helping you identify and obtain contracts. And then always need SBA's prior permission for if there's a change in the ownership structure, company's name, legal structure. If there are other outside employment or business interests other than the 8A firm, you need to get permission to notify us of that, and a determination has to be made that that outside interest is not going to interfere in the management of the 8A firm. If the owner is not going to be highest compensated in the company, we need to be made aware of that and have a determination made as to whether that is okay. A lot of times that is determined to be okay, because one of the rationales given is that, well, to be competitive, I need to be able to pay X amount to a certain type of position, and I rather short myself so that I can acquire and retain that talent. And that generally seems to be accepted as a rationale. But the key is we have to know about it up front. And then if you want to change your primary industry classification, then there's a process for doing that. Because, for example, maybe over time the business evolves, and what was your primary activity before and you got the majority of revenues from, now that has evolved into something else. Okay, Hub Zone, historically underutilized business zone. And kind of a little trivia question or trivia fact, Hub Zone was, someone came up with the idea of the term historically underutilized business zone to be a substitute for the term socially and economically disadvantaged. There was a business owner by the name of Joshua Smith, Maxim Corporation, who was a participant in the 8A program in the 80s and did very, very well. Felt like that term was kind of victimizing, and it is a very 1960s term. I'll be the first to admit that. So he thought Hub Zone would be a better alternative to describe the types of persons that could qualify business for the 8A program. Well, that was never adopted for the 8A program, but then lo and behold, about 10 years later, the Hub Zone certification was created, and they went with that. What's different about, I think, Hub Zone compared to, say, the 8A or small disadvantaged business or women-owned small business or veteran-owned small business, et cetera, is that this is based on not the characteristics of the owner, of the business that's qualifying it for those certifications, but it's based on where the business is located and where a significant percentage of the employees come from. So basically a hub zone is an area that is higher than median unemployment and or lower than median income. And there's a whole definition about that, but basically economically distressed areas. And the whole idea of this program was to try and, since the federal government is spending money anyhow to buy goods and services, can we direct some of those purchases to businesses that are located in economically distressed areas and who employ individuals in those areas or have the capacity to employ more of the residents of those areas. So that's really what was the thinking behind the Hub Zone program when it was created in the early 90s. Okay. Basically, the eligibility is the principal office has to be located in a hub zone, and you can actually go to the SBA website. We have an address locator in the hub zone section of the website. Type in the address, or you type in a county name and state, and it'll tell you whether that is a designated hub zone or not. So the principal business has to be there, the principal office, and at least 35% of the employees need to reside in a hub zone. Now, note, it doesn't have to be the same hub zone that the principal office of the business is located, but they have to reside in a hub zone, at least 35% of them. And once again, the owners have to be, the majority ownership has to be with U.S. citizens. In terms of the contracting vehicles that the hub zone certification can help you leverage, once again, you can have set-asides, which means you only compete with other hub zone businesses. Here you have what they call a price evaluation preference, and that comes into play when there's no set-aside. We're going to just, an agency decides we're going to do a request for proposal or request for bids, and anybody can bid. Large business, small business, disadvantaged business, non-disadvantaged business, anybody who wants to submit a bid. What this does is basically make an adjustment or give you a preference in terms of the pricing. Essentially what they do is they usually like 5-6% maybe, they add to all the non-hub zone businesses price. And if you as the hub zone business, when that process is done, is the low price, then, or the low bid, then you would be awarded the contract. So that's what a price evaluation preference is. And then like with 8A, you can have a sole source where there's a direct award. There's been some changes to the hub zone program because once again, as I mentioned, we've yet to, as a federal government, have yet to meet that 3% goal. Getting closer, but we haven't hit it yet. So to try and make it more attractive to contracting officers to think about setting aside work or utilizing hub zones in their contracting practices, what they did, this has been about a couple years ago, right around the time the pandemic was starting, was to allow a longer period of time for the hub zone area designations. Because once again, it's based on data around median income and unemployment. And, those are always fluctuating. And so contracting officers or even businesses who wanted to look at hub zone certification, well, I don't know how long this area is going to be considered a hub zone. And, do I want to really put a lot of effort into this? And then it turns out the area has kind of outgrown that designation, is no longer a hub zone. So basically now they update the maps every 5 years instead of every other year or every 3 years. So that gives a longer period of time for you to know that that area is in fact going to be a hub zone. They also created something called a legacy employee provision, because when you think about it, you've got hub zone certification because at least 35% of your employees are in a hub zone. Business does well. Maybe you're able to pay your employees more. What do? They decide, I'm going to move out of the hub zone. Well, then is that going to impact the eligibility of that company to continue to be considered a hub zone. That's one of those unintended consequences. So with this change, what basically they're saying is if an employee was with the company as a hub zone resident for a certain period of time, then even if they, after that period of time, if they decide to move somewhere else outside of a hub zone, you can still count them because they were there at the time that you received your hub zone certification and they were residing in that hub zone for a certain period of time prior to moving out. They're also putting a little more flexibility on the requirement that at least 35% of the employees have to live in the hub zone. That's still the goal, but if, say, you can keep it at least 20%, because sometimes there are challenges, especially in today's environment, for example, where employee challenges and hiring challenges are just there across the board. If you can, have at least 20%, then that's considered, okay, you're making a good faith effort. And then you can also show other things you're doing to try and get to that 35%. But if it doesn't fall below 20%, then they're not going to be so quick to decertify the company as a hub zone business. And then the hub zone, in terms of a contracting opportunity, long as that company was a hub zone qualified firm at the time that they submitted a bid or a proposal, then if something changed when it comes time to award the contract, then it won't impact the firm's ability to receive that contract. So the problem that was happening there was, depending on, especially if you're talking about a proposal type of contracting arrangement, it might take a while to negotiate the price and the terms of the contract. And if you were hub zone at the time, you submitted your bid or proposal, but maybe it's a year or a year and a half before that contract's awarded and something changed, then all that work and effort went down the drain. So now you only have to be qualified as a hub zone at the time of offer. And if that was the case, no matter when the award occurs, you would be able to receive that contract. And then lastly, and I think this is a really great one in line with the purpose of hub zone program, is if you make a long-term investment, like you buy a building or you do a long-term lease for your business, that's in a hub zone, even you can actually be eligible to be a hub zone business for up to 10 years, even if the area designation changes in the interim because of that long-term investment that was made. That was, I think that's something that really, like I said, once again, is in line with the nature of the program and the intent of it. And that is there as well. Women-owned small business, once again, the idea of giving women-owned small businesses an opportunity to build capacity and to grow through government contracting. And then you have the access to set-asides, as you do with some of the other programs or certifications I've mentioned for women-owned small business. And I'm going to explain, because this gets a little confusing. There's actually two subsets of women-owned small business in this certification: just regular WOSB, women-owned small business, and then economically disadvantaged women-owned small business, with the economic disadvantage being basically the same criteria we talked about for the 8A program. And you'll see in a minute why that difference is significant. So, of course, one or more women, only majority of the company that are U.S. citizens, control day-to-day operations. And the economic disadvantage will be same financial thresholds for personal net worth, personal assets, average personal income. And of course, that's the thresholds listed there again. In terms of the contracting vehicle, and this is a little different than the others. With the women-owned small business certification, contracting officer's ability to set aside or to utilize the WOSB designation is restricted to those in the industry codes that where women are documented to have been underrepresented or in government contracting or substantially underrepresented. And those NAICS codes, you can find those on our website on the Women-Owned Small Business, which industries that these apply to. And then, you have set-asides, as I mentioned. So it's just competition among other women-owned businesses. And there is a sole source provision where there can be a direct award. That was not originally the case, but that was added around 2016 or so. So the difference, okay, and I'm gonna try to, and I have to make sure I'm saying this correctly so that I don't confuse myself and you. Basically, women-owned small business, they don't have to be economically disadvantaged, so they can have, whatever net worth, personal net worth, income, assets. There are certain industry codes that are assigned to those types of businesses, and those are industries in which women are really, really underrepresented in terms of government contractors. So the worst underrepresentation might be another way to put it. Then you have the economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses, and there's NAICS codes that are kind of attributed to them. Why it's important with the EDWSB designation and saying I fall in that category, which a lot of businesses would when you look at the thresholds, is that as an EDWSB, you really can go after any of the NAICS code contracting opportunity. Any of them, whether it says EDWSB or WSB. Because the idea is if you're economically disadvantaged, you need all the help and support you can get. So there's really no limitation as long as it's between the two lists of industry classifications, you can go for it. Women-owned small businesses, however, if they're not economically disadvantaged, they're limited to only those industry classifications. And this is classification of the contracting opportunity by industry code, where there's really, really severe or substantial underrepresentation. So that's why the difference or the distinction is significant. And then just a reminder, and this is true of any of the set-asides, contracting officer can set aside a contract. It be for women-owned small business, it can be for hub zone, it be for service disabled veteran-owned small business, if there is a reasonable expectation that there are at least two of that type of business that would submit an offer. So the moral of that story is, in government contracting, a lot of times people, of course, are looking for the actual opportunities. Okay, your request for proposal, request for bids. But a lot of times contracting agencies will put out what they call requests for information or market survey, where they just kind of want to get a feel for who's out there that can provide a certain good or a certain service to help them decide how they're going to handle that contract, that contracting opportunity. So even though it's not a direct award or it's not an actual contracting opportunity you might see posted, if they're requesting information or they're doing market research, respond. Because that way they know, one, you're out there, and this does help them factor that information into their decision on how they're going to announce a procurement opportunity or open or limit a procurement opportunity. So the rule of two is where that really becomes important, because if there is two out there of something, in this case, women-owned small business, that could submit an offer, and there's a good expectation that that would happen, then that would be a justification for, I'm going to set it aside for a woman-owned small business or EDWSB or hub zone, et cetera. And then, of course, one of the main principles is that even though it may be a sole source or a limited competition, at the end of the day, the contract has to be awarded a fair, reasonable price or market price. And we always talked about the eligible NAICS codes. And once again, those can be found on the SBA website under the Women-Owned Small Business Program. You can see the latest. They actually added about 400 or 500 new codes back in March. So the latest list is on the website. And I think we've all touched on that already. Apart from certifications, we have the SBA Mentor Protege Program. And it's really just meant to be a tool or a way for less experienced small business owners that want to get into the federal procurement market or to grow their capacity to work in that space, that they can work with a more experienced business. It can be another small business that maybe is more experienced. It can be a large business. And that mentor can help that protege develop their capacity, gain experience that they might not be able to gain otherwise. The mentor can actually provide a variety of resources and types of assistance. And so let's look at that a little bit. And I'll talk about the establishing the joint ventures in a minute, but the whole point of the it used to be all small mentor protege program. Now it's simply the SBA mentor protege program. The whole point of it is to provide business development assistance. And contracting and subcontracting opportunities is just one of the areas in which a mentor can be of assistance. Oops. Okay, so really how this works is SBA does not find and match you with a mentor. I know that question comes up a lot. One thing I know we've talked about is how, we don't do the matching, but are there ways in which we can help facilitate an environment in which prospective mentors and prospective proteges come together? So we've been talking to a couple of entities about doing that. The mentor basically has to be for profit, of course, just like the protege. They can only, for the most part, have one protege. Sometimes they are allowed to have a second protege if it's not going to be direct competition or harmful to either of the proteges. So, for example, maybe you have a mentor who can do, I'm really bad at coming up with examples off the fly, but if you have a mentor, say, working with a protege who has a principal NAICS code in construction, okay, and maybe the other protege is not in construction. Maybe they're in engineering or in some type of consulting industry code. Then that could be a way to make that okay. And then generally the protege only has one mentor. There can be an exception to that if you find a second mentor that can provide assistance that you need that the first mentor can't. So you get some things from mentor number one, and you get other things you need for the long-term development of your business from mentor number two. And how we know all this is one of the things the protege has to do is to identify their developmental goals and needs. And then in their application with the mentor, explain how the mentor will explain how they're going to provide that support to help the protege achieve those types of business development goals. There. And there's a training that they each have to do online to make sure that they understand the parameters of the program and how it works, and submit that as the certificates of completion as part of their application. That's what the required training means. And then when you're approved to participate in the mentor protege program as a protege, you have, just like with the 8A program, you have a primary NAICS code in which you're looking to develop your business. So you have to identify it as part of that application. So one of the advantages of the mentor protege program is really being able to form joint ventures. And this is not so much important when it's another small business that is your mentor, but if it's a large business, for example, generally you can't go after small business opportunities, any type of small business set aside, be it 8A, be it HubZone, etc., with a large business, because you combine everything. It's not a small business. But the mentor protege program allows an exception to that, so that if you have an approved mentor protege agreement and it's part of your development to joint venture with that mentor, then you can actually form a joint venture with them even though it's a large business, and go after small business work. The mentor also has to provide a variety of training and assistance, and that could be anything from administration and operational, human resources, of course, contracting assistance, capture management skills to be able to how to identify and pursue opportunities to get to the point where they come to fruition and I actually have a contract. But these are all the things you can actually, the mentor can actually provide financial support too. That can be provide loans, and also they can provide equity investment. And I'm aware of a couple situations where the mentor actually did invest money into the protege to help them be able to expand their capabilities. Just some other resources, our 7J Management and Technical Assistance Program that has been around for quite some time. It was really created originally to be kind of a technical assistance companion to the 8A program. So the 7J Management and Technical Assistance piece, a lot of the 8A eligible businesses would be eligible to take advantage of this. Hub zone businesses, economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses in low income areas or areas of high unemployment, et cetera. So if you go to our website under federal contracting, you'll see the link to the 7J Management Technical Assistance Program, and they'll explain who our 7J contractors are, the types of training and assistance that they provide. And you see there on the right some examples of the areas in which they do provide assistance. One contract that we have, and I can, Rosemary, is it bid speed?
Yes, ma'am, it is bid speed.
Yeah, basically it is I guess like a proprietary software that they use, software as service, I think is the term that is used, that basically help you identify contracting opportunities, kind of track and monitor those opportunities. So the solicitation is out, or it is somehow sourced. Maybe they decide to do it as a sole source, but it's really meant to help you be able to identify and have a very organized and precise targeted way of pursuing possible contracting opportunities. And this is something that is free of charge. SBA essentially pay these technical assistance providers to provide this assistance. So do go on our website and check that out for other assistance or areas where they can provide support in your business. Dynamic Small Business Search, that's of course an online tool that SBA created to allow small businesses to kind of put a profile out there for the contracting community, and also for prime contractors who may be looking for subs. And it's a way of you kind of putting your resume out there for your company, your industry codes, your primary and some of the other codes or areas in which you do work, your performance history, any other certifications you have. Just you can be as detailed about your business and the type of work that you do. If you're a construction company, you can indicate what your bonding capacity is, et cetera. And I do know that contracting officers use it. Nobody really does the bid list anymore, the bidders list where you sign up, register. Some do, but most of them will use Dynamic Small Business Search for that purpose. And then another tool that is on the SBA website is Subcontracting Network, or Subnet. And that is basically a place for prime contractors, if they have subcontracting opportunities, to post those subcontracting opportunities for small businesses, and small businesses having a place where they can go and look to see what primes are looking for as far as subcontractors. And then to close out, just a kind of reminder of beyond government contracting, we guarantee commercial loans up to $5 million in most cases. We also have a microloan program that we deliver through community development financial institutions and nonprofit community-based lenders, loans up to $50,000. If you're a construction company or know someone who's in construction, they need to have surety bonding to submit bids. And then a lot of times if they win those bids, then they have to put up a performance and or payment bond. And we can help through the surety bond guarantee program, help them get bonding for contracts up to 6.5 million. And I think there's some legislation being proposed to maybe increase that amount, but for right now, we know it's 6.5 million. And that it doesn't have to be government contracts. It can be anyone who requires a surety bond for bids, bonds, performance or payment bonds. And then our counseling and education programs or resources as well, SCORE, Small Business Development Centers. We also have a couple women business centers that are in Metro Atlanta, but they do a lot of work virtually. A lot of webinars, et cetera, as well as our Veteran Business Outreach Center in Warner Robins, which do circuit rides throughout the state and also provide a lot of programming virtually. And I think that's going to take us to the end. So for more information, that's where you can go.
Terry, I also dropped stuff in the chat. As you were talking about the federal contracting programs, I dropped that in the chat about the prime and the subprimes. Also the 7J, where you can find out all of the companies that offer that technical assistance. There is a sign up for that, so you'll have to register for those classes. BidSpeed is one of them, but there are a lot of them and they have a schedule of classes. Also included some of the information on our lender match. So if you're looking for financing, you can actually find a lender in your area that is lending. It may not be here in Georgia, but it's all of our national lenders that's in our lender match. That's a no-cost tool that you can reach out to our lenders, as well as our local assistance. So if you're there in the Augusta area, you'll have our local partners there. You'll put in your zip code, it'll tell you a local partner that's near you that would be able to assist you. And that's our phone number and our contact information.
And thank you. And I will also include that information in my follow-up thank you tomorrow as well. I don't see any questions. So obviously, Ms. Dennison, you did such a fantastic job that nobody has any questions that they want to ask of you or me.
Wow.
Because I don't see any unless Ms. Drake sees some. I don't see any.
I saw Mr. Harris had his hand up earlier when you were going over some of the federal contracting. He may have had a question. I see his hand did go down. Perhaps the question was answered during Carrie's.
You said Harris?
Yes. I didn't see a question, but I did see his hand raised. But I know Terry covered a lot of information, so perhaps the information was covered during her presentation. And again, you're going to send this information out. We'll send it to you, and then they'll be able to send us any questions afterwards if we were not able to address their questions through the presentation.
Right. And like I say, on the survey, I also have a box there that they can, if they have any questions, they can ask there as well, that I will forward to you all as well.
Good.
So again, I don't see any questions. I don't see any hands raised. And that is good. So Ms. Dennison, I thank you again on behalf of the CSRA Business League and you too, Ms. Drake, for always being available to us whenever I shoot you an email and ask if you are available. I appreciate that very much. Again, tomorrow we will have a follow-up email that I will send out to everybody as always. It will include some information that you see here, as well as some information that they will share with me as well. Please answer the survey questions at the end of this presentation. You will also have another opportunity to answer the survey questions when Zoom sends you their thank you as well. So you get 2 thank you emails, one from me, one from Zoom. So we make sure that we thank you, because we know it. We do not take your attendance here lightly for being here in the afternoon at 6 o'clock from 6 to 7:30 as we always do. Again, our next seminar will be on the 23rd of September. Marketing Strategies 101. And don't forget our women's conference. Registration is open. It is in person and it is virtual. So either way, if you want to attend, you won't want to miss out on the great information that we will be sharing. Any parting words, Miss Dennison or Miss Drake?
Well, I would just say that, I know the last 2.5 years with the pandemic was a real, I guess, economic earthquake or tsunami, just in terms of shaking things up and things that, we assumed, didn't, those assumptions no longer work. Things that worked no longer did. Things that didn't all of a sudden started. And so I know businesses are trying to figure out what's next, kind of what is normal, quote unquote, now for us. And that's something that I think, just keep in mind that SBA, we had programs and resources before the pandemic, and we continue to have them afterwards. So between us and our resource partners, we can kind of help you on that journey to figure out what the next steps are.
I would definitely echo that with Terry. We've just updated our website. So as you see, here's Georgia at sba.gov. If you do a / and put GA, that'll take you to our landing page. It gives you a lot of information about our local partners here, including our community navigators, which is one of our newest resource partners. And they're there in your local community. So you're accustomed to seeing SCORE, the Women's Business Center, the Small Business Development Center, and of course the VBOC. And now we have our community navigators to make sure that we're bridging the gap between access to all of our programs and services. So be sure to reach out to them so that they can work with you as you work into this recovery period onto growth and sustaining your business. So we do appreciate you, and sign up for all the classes that we have on a regular basis at no cost to you.
Yeah, and I thank you for that. I have been including GMIN information because I know they're one of your community navigators as well, in our newsletter because I'm on their page and as well. And they do have a wealth of information that I read up on every day that I like to share as well in our weekly newsletters. I also include y'all information as well, so don't think I leave y'all out. But I try to include as much information as possible so that we can get the word out. But I do know, considering the fact that the pandemic has wreaked havoc on everything, because we normally do this workshop in person during the month of October, which we have done over the past years, but we're doing it now to try to get it out the way and get it early so that we can get those who need to be certified, especially these women-owned businesses and those who want to be AA. So again, I thank you all. I thank everyone for attending. Please make sure you sign up for the Women's Empowerment Retreat. Be on the lookout for information regarding our 52nd anniversary banquet and Marketing Strategies 101 on the 23rd of September. Thank you again, Ms. Dennison and Ms. Drake, and to all of you. And if you have any other words, have a good evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
Be safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.